Okay, we are now in progress. I'm just gonna, I think we should be okay. So this is the Affordable Housing Committee meeting of March 10th. It's now 7:03 p.m. And on WebEx, we have Chairman Steve Grathwall. We also have Carrie Mackover, Helene Daly, Shirley Dreyfus Cosgrove, Joanne Romano Kazanka, and Cindy Samarco, I believe, as well as our recording secretary, Gretchen Gostner. And I think we also have some members of the public as well. So, Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
First, good evening. I'm glad you all could join us. A reminder that because of the WebEx format, only the members of the committee will be able to respond, to talk, ask questions, etc. Excuse me, if there are members of the public that do have questions, please email us, myself or Mark Barnhart, that we will get back to you with the response. Sorry for the lack of a total public forum, but these are the COVID days that we are living with. And with that stated, Mark, I would like to make the formal request that you ask the town for a estimated date when we might be able to meet in person in the near future. Thank you.
No problem. You realize that the RTM, Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, and all other town boards and agencies are meeting virtually at this point in time. So I think those groups that are hearing the budget and all those other very important matters in setting the tax rate, as well as our planning and zoning and other land use boards, you know, I'm sure that they'll give due consideration to the Affordable Housing Committee, but there's probably a few other people standing in line before us.
Okay.
That said, I think, you know, this virtual format has had its benefits, but it also has had its significant drawbacks as well. I wish we had an easier platform myself, but this is what I have to work with.
Yeah.
But I will certainly convey your concern.
Yeah.
I have a question about that. Is it possible to include the public as we would if we were in person?
You know, honestly,
and have a public comment period only, not like we were doing, but before the pandemic, we discussed about having a public comment period, and then, you know, that's it, and then close it. That's what I'm suggesting.
I think that would be up to the committee, but I honestly, you know, it's more, to me, I don't see much of a need. You know, I can run the meeting from here on WebEx and mute and unmute individuals. So to me, to have a separate public line and then the WebEx line for the commission members is just not all that practical. So maybe as at least the first step, we can just eliminate having had, you know, I can ask for the public line that the Planning and Zoning Commission uses, which is an open line that all the members log into, and then we just simply manage the meeting that way, like Emmeline does for planning and zoning, and mute callers if they're not speaking.
Yeah.
So
I think that makes a lot of sense.
So
to make it a lot easier on my end.
Mark, you're saying that you can actually do what Sheila was asking. We can set up a format where the public can have a moment of time to ask questions or to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see why you couldn't. You'd have to put it in the agenda, and we'd have to have a mechanism. You know, that's exactly what planning and zoning is doing. They have the WebEx line posted on their agenda, and everyone calls into that. There's no secret password or handshake or anything like that. So it's a lot easier.
So keep that in mind for
standpoint.
next month. I would like to do that if we can next month.
It would be helpful.
It's going to be increasingly important as we move forward with the affordable housing plan development. The idea is to do outreach and engage the public in that planning effort. So I don't see how you can do it without getting public feedback.
Yeah, and I think we'll need to do that. That's one of the ideas that we would put forth to get comment, you know, and to get ideas on the affordable housing plan. That's the only way to do it right now.
Yeah, if we're not going to be meeting in person when we go through the charrettes and stuff for the Affordable Housing Plan update, we have to do it, and it's got to be seamless. You know, we can't have frozen faces and muted people. We've got to have it really down pat.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that when we get, if we're still doing those things virtually, at that
Yeah.
point in time when we're engaged in it, we would maybe defer to our consultant to assist us and have a platform that might be a little bit more flexible than WebEx. I mean, not that WebEx is a bad platform, but there's been, and maybe it's just operator error on my part, that other folks are a little bit more nimble as to how to use this. But
yeah, check into that. If the consultant could use his platform or her platform, that might be good. But I don't know if the town can allow that because of it's a town
I know.
meeting, isn't it? You know.
I know.
Yeah.
But, you know, to that point, Steve, I'll just, not to digress too far, but we have had several public workshops on different planning studies and where we've engaged the public, and those have been on platforms like Zoom, or I think more like Microsoft Teams or something like that. So it hasn't been restricted to WebEx to do some of these other workshops around specific planning studies. So I'm hopeful that, you know, we can use a different type of platform if need be.
Yeah. And I'm
It's always
thinking
better to do it in person. Absolutely.
if we really had to, we could probably get some help from Fairfield U. They've got to have this down to pat, I would think, because they have so many students at the same time filling up a screen. They should be able to assist us. Maybe we could even use one of their rooms, you know, for our bigger meetings. So,
Yep.
just a thought. Oh, and another college question before we get into the minutes. When is the theater going to open downtown?
They're looking at probably sometime April. I don't think they've formally set a date yet, but they're very, very close. They're pushing for their CO. And, you know, I was just through it the other day and it looks spectacular. So it'll be a great addition to the downtown. They're ready to go, probably sometime mid-April, I would guess.
That's great. That's just wonderful for the town.
Can't wait for.
Yeah, and understand that, you know, for the time being, like FTC, they're going to be subject to the same sector rules and occupancy limits, but they can manage it. The theater is reduced in terms of its seating from what it was, but it's a really nice looking venue. So
I'm looking forward to seeing it because I walked through it under the prior owner about 2 years ago. And
well, you're gonna be impressed.
Yeah.
It's nothing like what it was.
Is it one theater now, like one theater?
It is one theater. They took out the demising wall, and so it's one theater. Yeah.
Okay, great.
It'll seat about about 600. You know, it's a roughly half of what it was.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a nice looking venue.
But between that and the Quick Center, we're really blessed, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Downtown.
Yeah. I want to acknowledge Nancy is on, Nancy Lyons.
Yeah,
So
I am. I
good
don't know why I
evening,
can't get the video to work. I have to get between my iPad and my phone to get it to work.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that's the only
I think what Joanne is saying the same thing.
Try in your settings for your iPhone or your iPad, you have to give your camera permission. Someplace there's going to be something, let camera access these
I did. I
applications. You're
started
just going to have to
video
find
and
it.
that. Yeah.
It's nothing on my end.
Yeah.
let's go to the minutes from the February 10th meeting. If I could get a motion to approve. And I think that
So
was
moved.
Helene. Who was that?
Joanne.
Joanne? And who seconded?
I'll second it. Helene.
Thank you, Helene. Any comments, discussion? Hearing none. Can I get all those in favor to approve, say aye. Raise your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Those who want to abstain, abstain. Approved unanimously. I will just make a comment, side comment, Mark, that in February, we had 377 points towards the moratorium out of the 433 that we need. So we'll
We are
get,
so close.
yes, we are so close.
So
Um, yeah. And Gary, things are okay?
Yeah, I'm just coughing.
Yeah, okay. A note that there was a little meeting on Robert's Rules of Order, a little training session, I think it was last week. And it is available. I forget the website. I'll circulate it, but the video is available. And I don't know, Mark, if you know exactly where it's at, but I got a follow-up email. And
Steve, I think the town circulated it because I got two emails about it. I got the email prior to the video, then one after. So I'm hoping that other members of the committee got it as well.
yeah, I'll go ahead and send it out anyway, just to be sure.
Yeah, if you have trouble locating it, just let me know.
Yeah.
It was a well done program, from what I understand.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed that. It was one email sent out and if you don't put it in my calendar, that's it. And so I did get the video, so I don't need it. It did come to me. That I saw, and then I realized I missed it.
So next on the agenda are the goals, the Affordable Housing Committee goals for 2021. And I think that we know what they are. We just haven't stated them. We haven't written them down. And we don't have to do it tonight. I will circulate something before the next meeting, but the ADU the regs have been approved. And so now we have to get to promoting that. We're doing the update, the affordable housing plan. We're doing trust fund activities. It's just that we should know exactly what it is, the 3 or 4 things that we hope to accomplish during 2021. The update may take us into 2022. We should should agree on what the 3 or 4 goals are, and then all work towards them.
Stephen, I have a quick question. When I was reading the ADU regs, and I also read the Ridgefield proposal, they were at 900 square feet, and Fairfield's at 1,500 square feet.
Only for certain ones, only for very certain ones. Not everything.
Okay.
Most of them are limited like that. They're still generous.
And if I may, I provided the Ridgefield pamphlet as an example of how one community provided information to their public about how they could go about creating an accessory dwelling unit. At this juncture, we have made a request, and the request has been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that is now our regulatory context that we're working within. So, I will let the ink dry before we go any further in terms of making other proposed changes, although there might be some further tweaking that we might want to do.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
And Mark, one of the reasons for the Ridgefield pamphlet was to show us what we might want to do also as a way to inform the public, correct?
Yeah, I think there would be 2 ideas that I've heard from individuals here, and Carrie can probably speak further to this. One is, Ridgefield certainly put together a pamphlet that kind of is a how-to manual, explains, what ADUs are and what's allowed, how you go about creating it. And I think that would be helpful to have something handy that we can provide both digitally and in print. But then Carrie's also mentioned the possibility of hosting a webinar or program of some sort where we allow, experts, and I would suggest no better experts than Jim or Emmeline from Planning and Zoning, who will be receiving these applications, just walk people through the regs and what's allowed now under the new revised regimen, and also answer questions. So I think both of those would be time well spent and further fleshing those things out.
So
Do you
you're
agree?
saying that we would have a session where Jim or Emmeline would join with us, we would talk and walk people through and answer questions. That could be
Yeah.
videotaped and be available.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that sounds great.
Can I say
Sure.
something? Can I say something? Having watched the one that Fair Plan did a few weeks ago, where they had about 150 people signed up. We don't need to do anything that big, but the Ridgefield one was done many, many years ago by a guy who was on their board or commission or whatever it is, who's a graphic designer, and he was the chairman of the affordable housing. It's in a way 10 years old. We really have to be digital, because we can have something available as a download much shorter, but the way you reach people today is through social media, unfortunately, but that is the way. So it has to be something that's publicized, that grabs people, that lets them at least find out where they can download it. I mean, like Mark, for instance, has done some wonderful websites that are subsumed under his website, having to do with business and economic development. And those are available from, the town website, but they're way much better and much more informative. And we need to really publicize this and show people graphically how it can be done. So that's, and I had laid something out, with Jim and Emma, either Jim or Jim and Emmeline, and somebody from this commission, this board. What are we? We're a committee, I guess.
Committee, yeah.
And do it. It has to be something that's, kind of YouTube and kind of Facebook.
So why don't we get a
great.
college student to help us? Can we get somebody, an intern kind of person that needs some
Well,
credit? And
Let's let Mark think about it.
I don't, it's great. I have to work with a lot of college students. Some are awesome, and some require a lot of help. So we have people that do videos for us. We have people who do websites for us. We have people who do graphic design for us and pamphlets for us. So
Mark, you're breaking
what
up
we
a
need
little.
is the
Yeah,
outline
I
and
hear
the
that
text,
too.
and we'll pretty it up. Don't worry about it. We can take care of it. I'm sure we can come up with a few bucks to make it look nice.
okay, and Mark, you're breaking up a bit as you speak. So I don't, sometimes you do. So when there's a job to be done, you have to have somebody's name attached to it. And I think that this is one that is calling out for Carrie. So
Yeah, it's calling out for Carrie, but just for those of you who don't know, who might be wondering why I am wearing a hat. I am actually in treatment for cancer at the present time. So even though today is a good day, I cannot promise that every day might be a good day.
Oh, Carrie, I'm so
Carrie.
sorry.
Yeah, well, it's life. So I'm actually doing all right. It's just I can't say I can take on any kind of long-term commitment. It kind of depends how I am. Last month, when I left the meeting at 8 o'clock because it was too much after a day of chemotherapy. Today I got out of chemotherapy at 2, so I'm in better shape. We'll see how that goes. So I could certainly be involved. I just don't want to say that I have a lot of time or energy necessarily.
Well, Carrie, I'd be happy to help you with that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Carrie, me too.
Okay.
Carrie, whatever you need, we're here to support you.
That's great. Thank you.
So
You
for-
have to take care of yourself. That's what's
And if
important.
there's something out deals or driving places, just let us know.
Yeah, it's in my prior life, and I've had several prior lives, as many of you have had. I mean, I did do websites, and I started out in life as a book designer. So none of this is foreign to me. It's just that the skills have gone someplace else. Yeah.
The other
You know what,
thing I was
Carrie?
gonna-
Well, we'll use your
We've
practice
kind of been
die
together
to
for a
make
long
sure it looks
time.
good.
Yeah. But yeah, I
Look
know.
at us
I
as
know
your
what-
family.
I know what should be done. You see, here's the deal. I know what should be done. It's really easy to think of this stuff. I mean, I could lay it out. It's the doing of it that Mark's people should do, because they know.
Carrie, I was just gonna say to you, if you could lay it out, I mean, there's plenty of us on the committee that can actually put it together for you to go over.
Yeah, I mean, and there's also a huge number of these things online from loads of communities. If you see what California
I've been
stuff-
looking all day. I found them all
Yeah.
over the country.
I mean, there are lots of places in California and in Florida, and they've done really magnificent stuff. So plagiarize from everybody. I can't call them people, but thank you all. Yeah, I mean, I think, if everybody does a piece of it, that would be great.
Perhaps if we take a section of it, we could do it.
We're here
and get-
for you.
Okay. Thanks.
I'd also like to add that I think it's important to get this message out to the Realtor community because a lot of questions regarding, whether it's assessments or additions and, renovations, often people go back to the Realtor to ask them that question.
Yeah.
So we could even have somebody like Emmeline or Jim come to a Greater Fairfield Board of Realtors meeting. We do that once a month. They could be a guest speaker introducing this idea to all of the realtors, letting them know, what.
That's something, yeah.
Excellent, excellent idea.
Yeah. Also, if we're doing a flyer or brochure, we could I'd be happy to distribute those all around town to the different brokerages.
Mhm.
If a house has an ADU potential, that could be listed, that could be included in the listing. And we could, realtors could include links in their supplemental information on the listing to that YouTube video. So there's a lot that can be done with social media. And of course, then even on Facebook and Instagram, there's tons of sites, especially Facebook, that we can promote the ADUs, throughout
It's
town.
huge. It's huge. It's promotion.
Eileen,
I'm sorry,
Eileen,
let
there
me
was
ask,
oh, go
excuse
ahead,
me, let me
Julie.
ask a question of Gretchen. Are you getting the people's names who have raised their hand?
Not really. No, I'm not.
Okay.
Oh, it
It
is. The
is.
whole thing is
Carrie,
being
Helene.
recorded.
Everybody
Sorry
makes-
about that was Helene that just gave the real.
Yeah, it's not,
Okay, so it's being recorded, so Gretchen can go back and pick it out.
Okay.
Okay, fine. I'm sorry, Cindy. I just wanted to make sure that if this was being captured.
it's kind of breaking up.
Mute all. Unmute, and then unmute yourselves.
Yeah.
Eileen, I was gonna say that
Sometimes it
there
helps
was-
to
I
wear
sent-
earbuds.
I sent a picture of a garage on Sasko Road that looked like it had a great potential for an ADU. And then I also saw on Pequot Avenue, someone was building almost like a separate entrance to their house, which was really very, it looked really nice. I'm not sure what their potential was, whether they were doing an ADU there, but it was a really nice picture of what something could be.
Yeah.
And I think if we take some pictures of this and include them in kind of, a brochure or whatever, people could see what could be done and that they could do
Absolutely.
with their residences going forward.
Mm-hmm.
One thing to stress, people, one thing to stress is it's hugely expensive in today's market to build like a new freestanding ADU. You're building a small house in terms of cost.
Yep.
For our older people and people on limited incomes, we really want to stress that they should try and find room within their house or with a small addition and do it that way. The savings in time and cost would be huge. And there will be people who will build these larger ones who do have the funds, but a lot of people really need to be shown how to incorporate something within or just as a small extension to their house.
the one on Pequot was attached. So
Yeah.
it was a separate entrance that was more than 10 feet apart from the first entrance. I'm not sure whether or not, I mean, it did not look like a mudroom. It almost looked like a separate entrance.
Yeah,
But it's just being built now. But aesthetically, it's very, it's very nice. And
Yeah.
I think
show these things.
whatever they're doing there, it's a good example of what could be done.
Yeah.
But you don't know that it's ADU.
Yeah, it could be just an entrance.
Well, I don't know, but I mean, it just seems like a completely separate entrance. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it's a good look. Maybe you use this as an example, like, look, this looks good. We could use this,
A new mudroom,
Well, I think, I think I looked, I think I Googled or on Pinterest or was one of those, ADU, or, separate in-law apartments. There's tons of images. It doesn't matter where we take it from, as long as it looks good. Shows people.
Well, Helene, you might be able to ask around the office. There may be one of your associates that knows of one in town that just strikes her as being really good.
Yeah, if I put my thinking cap on, I'm sure I'll remember one. Yes, I will. I'll ask.
Okay, I think we've got a good outline, and enough people raise their hands.
Everybody.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, we don't want to have everyone. That would be an illegal meeting. Yeah, so just a few.
Everybody raise their hands. But
Yeah.
we could, as I just sent
Need a
everybody
couple
a chat.
times, couple at a time. That's all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And so we'll leave it in Carrie's good hands to be the general and direct.
Okay, next week.
And a question for you, Carrie. I don't know if you've gone through the state regulation, the House Bill 6521.
Yes, I have.
Is there anything in there that we need?
Not really. I mean, there were a couple of odd things. But I think we've moved on from 6521 to a different bill at this point. I was pretty much in agreement with what we had just adopted, not totally. There was one thing that was a little odd that they never mentioned. You need to have a separate bathroom. And I think I put that on some comments someplace. But
Okay.
other than that, the size differential was different. There was some discussion about how the length of deed restriction. But I think just down the pike has come a new bill, which also incorporates a lot of what 6521 had, and that was 1024, which I don't know when that was posted, but I just found out about it today. So
Yeah, I got that email as well. That's from the one being promoted by Desegregate Connecticut.
Yeah, and again, they had discussed ADUs, and again, it was pretty much in agreement with what RP&Z had adopted, or that there were very minor changes. Again, some size and some issues with doors, but they do pull it back to the 830 thing, which required the corresponding door between the two at one point. So I'd say I don't think there's any major problems. There may be minor tweaks, but there's always minor tweaks.
Okay. By the way, I circulated a couple of days ago the Desegregate Connecticut 2-page flyer.
Yeah.
That flyer now has the label of SB 1024 on the front of it. And so I'll recirculate it. So you won't be confused if you are trying to read about SB 1024 and it's not on the flyer. So after tonight, you'll have the flyer with the update.
Okay. Let me say one other thing about 1024. For the first time, perhaps in the history of the Connecticut general statutes, it's readable. And that makes a huge, huge difference. Whether you like what it says or not, it is readable. And it has to do with formatting and double spacing and outlining and numbering. And it made a huge difference because my eyes don't glaze over when I read it.
Well, that's good to hear.
There's a good part of the bill that reflects existing statutory language, and it's just reformatted for ease of viewing, and it's a big improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're real people wrote it about real things that matter.
And there's a lot of new stuff
There's
being
some attorneys,
proposed,
at least.
being proposed up at Hartford, and I hope that
I didn't say
Fairfield
they weren't
gets,
attorneys.
I hope
They're
that
still real
Fairfield
people.
gets the recognition it deserves, because so many of the new stuff being proposed, Fairfield has already taken steps towards them. I think we are a leader, not even just in the state, but in the tri-state area. And I really hope that we get that recognition. So,
We
and
have
all
got
of
that recognition
goes to our
for
planning and
years.
zoning and to Mark.
We
Thank
need
you.
to take the next step.
Well, we've been taking a lot of good steps. And
Yeah,
we're continuing to move
absolutely.
forward.
This is the next step. There's a lot of things in here
Um,
that we're not doing, so.
I will,
The fair share
I
planning,
will
I got
say,
an
Well, that's
issue
a
with.
different bill. That's a different
with
bill.
respect to 1024,
Yeah.
it is the subject of the public hearing before Planning and Development, chaired by Representative Kristen McCarthy-Vahey on Monday, March 15th. So I will be happy to circulate the link to that public hearing notice. So if you want, you can tune in.
You should do that. Thank you.
Which brings up an interesting question. Do we take a stand on any of this proposal as individuals or as a committee? Or do we just leave it up to each individual person?
Well, as an individual, you should take whatever stand you think is appropriate.
Yeah.
For the committee, I would really have to defer to discussions with planning and zoning and to see what they think and what the town thinks. I don't want to sort of make independent statements that might conflict with what the town already has planned. Individually, you should feel free to say whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
And Mark, do you know, has planning and zoning scheduled any planning sessions for themselves to discuss about these?
No, I've reviewed some of these bills with staff, 1024 in particular, and there's a lot to unpack in the bill. There are some elements that we don't agree with completely, but there's a lot that we already are in compliance or very close to being consistent with. So I'm not sure it's targeted to communities like Fairfield per se, but I think it would be very hard for us tonight, given the fact that we just started reviewing the text and it's rather lengthy, come up with a position, because even planning and zoning is still analyzing what the impact would be. But my initial read, to which planning and zoning staff concur, is that it doesn't. There's a lot there, but it would have seemingly not a huge impact because of the fact that we've done a lot of these things already. That's not to say that we're fully subscribing to everything in the bill, but there's it's not maybe as dramatic a shift as perhaps others might think. So, but I don't think we're ready to take an official position on it.
Well, I think that's a good point to make, though. You could compare and contrast so that the public understands that we're already doing many of these things, and it might help them to feel more comfortable with it. I know a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree with that, and again, this is based on my first run through reading of it and talking to Emmeline and Jim for about a half hour in their office. So, but the devil's always in the details. I was telling somebody else that today. So I think we want to spend a little bit more time and understand what the legislative intent is. I get some of it, but there's other aspects that maybe you need to spend a little bit more time and fully understand what they're driving at here. But what Carrie said earlier, there's there's a significant component of it talks about what zoning does and what they're empowered to do. And that right now is this just huge run-on sentence that you can barely make heads or tails out of. And they're breaking it up so it's a lot easier to read. So that part is just a reformatting issue.
Yeah, 8-2 is a big run-on
Right.
sentence. You're right.
Right.
But it is, there's a lot of very few very important things in there. Let me ask you, is this the bill that asks for no public hearings? That to
Yeah, the two most significant impacts or changes here are the definition of as of right development. We don't typically, even on larger projects that are consistent with our regs, typically we allow for a public hearing to get public comment before the Planning and Zoning Commission renders a decision. This would say, these are as of right, permitted as of right. So that would be a departure, a change from what we're currently doing. The other aspect that would have an impact would be for those types of developments that are defined around transit nodes and commercial corridors, they're eliminating a parking requirement associated with that, which again, we've reduced our parking requirements in recognition of the fact that, these developments that are co-located near transit, there's some offset there as people take transit options, but we haven't gone to the Hartford model where you just say there's no parking, that you don't have to provide for parking at all. And so this says there's no minimum parking requirement. Now, developers, whether or not there's a parking requirement or not, developers may want to provide parking on site as an amenity to their tenants. And so, the fact that you say zero doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's going to build zero. But I think we're not quite, I don't sense that we're quite there yet in terms of adopting no parking for these types of developments.
no.
So those are the two big changes that I saw, flipping through this real fast. And those would be, departures from our current model.
On the other hand, if you look at the verbs that are used, a lot of the verbs first say, okay, the town can decide where to do such and such a thing or such and such a thing based on soil types, other things, floodplain, for instance. And once they decide where something can be done, then the smaller projects can be as of right. And the other ones should and can be continued to be special permit. But, a four-unit multiplex would not generate much more runoff than a current McMansion, if any. It might be less even. So there's not necessarily a reason that you need to do everything with a special permit, with going before the commission, which is the kiss of death for anything happening.
It's a kiss of
practically.
death. You're right.
So you got to watch
And
those. You got to watch those verbs where it says provide or will or can consider. You just look at those verbs that are used and see who's got
It's not
what.
always the kiss of death. I mean, there's a lot of things. You go through planning and zoning agendas and listen to their meetings, and some things it's a very quick public hearing and they get approved, no issue at all.
The really easy things.
Obviously we're thinking about the more contentious ones.
Yes, we are.
And so
I just like to be direct.
And the one thing I will note that with regard to accessory dwelling units, we've been talking about that. Essentially our process is as of right.
Yes.
Because it's an administrative approval. So you don't need that. You do have to show conformity with the regs, but it doesn't require a public hearing to set up an accessory
anymore.
So.
It used to require going to ZBA if you wanted an addition and your house was
right. Because that was because it was not in conformance with our regulations. Now we've made all those things conforming.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
But we're beyond that. So
okay.
So we're done with the ADUs?
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, I did provide Representative McCarthy-Vahey because she asked. I sent her both the record of decision and gave her a quick primer that outlined the key changes, and that might be something just to compare the old versus the new language. We can certainly put something together real quick as a quick reference guide. Maybe Carrie's already done that.
We had something similar like that. Yeah.
But if you have something handy, Mark, that would be good if you could circulate it, and then Carrie could
I will-
compare it
I
to
will.
what she already had, you know.
No,
Okay.
I'd compare it, yeah, I mean, yes.
Thank you. So let's talk about the Affordable Housing Plan update. The RFQ was published, correct?
Yay.
And responses are due back, is it next week?
The responses are due back tomorrow.
Really?
Tomorrow?
Oh, is
Okay.
it posted? Is it posted on the website? Or
Yeah, it
can you
is.
send us
It
a
is
copy?
posted. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll send you the link. Yep, I can send you the link.
I can grab it.
And they will usually post the responses or some summary as well to the website. So I'm not sure how quickly they do that. I'm assuming that if we get multiple ones, what we've done in the past is we purchasing will put together a small group. It'll probably be Jim or Emmeline and myself, and we'll meet with them, review their qualifications, and then make a recommendation to purchasing agent. So hopefully, we'll get a good response, and by the end of the month, we'll certainly have somebody. I'm hoping we'll have somebody on board, and maybe I can work with the chairman to set up a special meeting so we can kind of get this ball rolling as quickly as we can.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so
Yeah,
purchasing
good
will
idea.
post a bid result or an RFQ result with prices
They
and
will
names?
typically do that. Yep.
That'd be great to get for us if you
Okay,
could.
Yeah.
You'll circulate it, Mark?
Yes, I will circulate the link.
Yeah.
It'll
Good.
probably be easier if I just gave you the link and then you could download what you want.
Okay.
So this is the RFQ, not an RFP. So,
Well, we did ask for both.
Okay.
We asked for qualifications, statement of qualifications. We also asked for a proposal,
okay,
a fee proposal.
good. So we'll be able to make a determination. You'll be able to make a determination based on what you get by tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah,
And we'll see.
great.
I will certainly let you know how many responses we got from home and all that. So.
The calendar is important to me, and I'm hoping that we don't select somebody that wants to take 24 months, that.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think we have a deadline. The Board of Selectmen tasked us with updating the plan and expects to report by this time next year. So we have 12 months to complete this update. So I think anyone who would propose something outside of that time horizon, I would not view very favorably.
And let me just ask if the last consultant that helped us with the update, if you think he's going to be submitting?
I sure hope so. I sent him the link, and I sent a link to a few other consultants, planning consultants that have responded to other communities, helped other communities that I'm aware of. So
Good.
But I believe
Okay.
Planometrics will be one of the respondents.
Great.
I think.
Okay. I don't know if there's anything more to say about the annual plan, the report to the RTM. You and Cindy went to the committee meeting. You went to the RTM meeting, didn't you? And
I monitored the RTM meeting. I didn't say a word. It went by quickly. They reported that they received the report in committee, and that was the end of that. So I was there for 30 seconds on your behalf.
Okay.
The committee was a little bit more prolonged discussion. Cindy, I don't know if you want to share any thoughts.
I have to say that you guys keep going in and out, but no, I
Sorry.
didn't think they had that many questions. I thought it was it was a good presentation, and I don't really have much more to say. I mean, there weren't that many questions really. So
Okay. Before we go on to the trust fund, I just wanted to mention that I reached out to Carla at Operation Hope to see if maybe we could have a get together with them, as we did a couple of years ago. And she said, sure, it sounded good to her. Their meeting is the same night as our meeting, and so Mark had suggested that maybe we have a special meeting, change our date or something, and that I think we ought to do. So just look out for the email, and we'll give you more information in the near future. Okay, the trust fund. First, how much do we have?
Per the comptroller, we have a balance of $623,361.68.
Cool.
623,361.68.
Does that include the hockey rink at Sacred Heart?
I don't think so. And so there are a number of very large projects that will be coming down the pike. One is the hockey arena at Sacred Heart, and the second is the Fairfield U new Convocation Center and Alumni Hall, which may be part of this, but may not, because that's another $40–50 million project.
That's great. That means you've got almost $1 million between what we spent and what we have left.
Yeah.
That's great.
The NOFA, did we post anything on the website yet?
The trust fund application is posted. We haven't done any marketing around it. We have shared it with a few developers. I think, Sheila, you shared it with a few of your contacts within the development community. I don't know if you heard any further comments or feedback.
You want that now? Sure. So I did. I circulated it to, I spoke to 4 small contractors who I know personally and don't know personally. I've just heard about. And they do residential. And 2 I heard back from, and the other 2 I did not. How should I say this? One of them specifically in conversation, when I introduced it, I don't know him personally. I just know he's actually doing a subdivision up the street. And I'd met him on one of our TPZ meetings. You know, I stayed to listen to his application. So I contacted him. These are all people who've grown up in Fairfield, pretty much. And he literally said he would probably not be interested because it becomes public, and it's not worth going in front of the public hearings. To my point about, and carries, you know, if there were multifamily zoning amendment, so that that could be done without a special permit, then we might have some more willingness. The other side to that is, you know, a deed restriction, which, you know, Mark, with CDBG funds, not everybody wants to deed restrict their properties, even if they're getting money for it. So I don't know. I have, you know, when I hear back from the
deal.
Oh, right, but you know.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can't give sometimes you can't give money away. Is what I say to people. It's like, geez, what do I have to do to get you to take this money?
It's less money.
Well, it's never enough money when it comes down to people's property and ownership. So, and quite frankly, you know, the public scrutiny is a lot. It really is a deterrent. And I really think that if we're an affordable housing committee, if we want affordable housing, we really have to think about the things that are being, you know, put forth in SB 1023. I mean, it's just, you can't
But-
make
But
affordable
Sheila, you
housing here.
need the public scrutiny. You know, people,
No,
we're in a
know.
democracy and people have a,
okay,
they have a
so
right to respond to things that are happening within their community.
if somebody is allowed to build on the property they own the way they want it within the zoning regs of that district, why should your neighbor be telling you what to do with your own personal property? Why?
They don't get to
Well,
tell you what to do, but they get to comment.
If it does meet those requirements, if you're building what's permitted, yeah, that's
Sure.
one thing. But the other thing, I think, if you're providing allocations of funds, there's going to be a public process. I mean, you can't
Well, sure.
allocate public dollars without going through some kind of
Oh,
public
that's not what I
approval
mean.
process.
Yeah.
And there are going to be developers that just don't want to be bothered by that. And I
Well, it
understand
wasn't-
that. You
It
know
wasn't
that
the
too. There's
process.
just it's not worth their pain and aggravation. So
It
but
wasn't, he
there'll
wasn't
be others.
commenting.
There
He
are other
wasn't
ways of
commenting.
using those funds
He
to
wasn't
enhance
commenting on that.
people's ability to do ADUs by having an evangelist, by having somebody hold somebody's hand, walk people through the process. It's sometimes making it much easier for people to think about it and do it, you know, which is kind of what we're talking about as a start. Those are ways also of encouraging people to do it.
Yeah, Mark, just to
Absolutely.
clarify.
I think it boils down to what are you trying to accomplish? What's
Yeah.
your goal? And
Right.
so then, go ahead,
He
Jill.
wasn't objecting to the application process. He was objecting to being stigmatized in public as an affordable property.
What?
Yeah.
I'm just laughing.
Why is this
Um,
different than anybody who goes in front of
Now,
830G?
so I'm sorry, Mark was laughing. What I should have mentioned at the start of the meeting, there is under one of the icons at the bottom of the screen, a way to acknowledge that you want to speak, you want to say something.
Raise
And so you
hand.
can raise your hand or lower your hand. And
Raise.
when we have 8 or 9 of us on the screen, sometimes it's, you know, you get 4 people talking at once. And so I just wanted to remind people that you can raise your hand and,
No, raise hand. Well, yeah, right. Okay.
okay,
Okay.
raise hand, lower hand. That's it.
Mark, what was that?
That's called clapping hands, what he did. But there's thumbs up, which means you like it. The raise hand is muted out on my screen because I don't think we've got rights to raise our hand.
No, I
Oh.
do.
No, we don't. You
No.
can use the
I do.
thumbs up if you
I
you
do.
do
Like
make
the
you make.
emojis.
I see it, but click it and see what happens. Mine is
Where are the emojis?
There's a little circle at the bottom of the screen with the guy smiley. You click that.
Okay.
And at the top of
That
the
that could be
emoji,
dangerous, Steve.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just to raise your hand. I didn't want to digress, but all right.
by people.
Class. Come back to attention, class. So,
Give me a lot of
Um,
emojis now.
All
yeah.
right, you could all mute yourselves and then raise your hand and let Mark then tell you to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Karen. And speaking of class,
Myself.
Fairfield schools are open again. You can see people on buses and stuff.
Yay!
Hallelujah. Yeah, it's great.
A lower hand. All right, there's
Yeah.
the hand. Hardly shows up.
Okay. So Mark,
Yesterday, and it was the most wonderful sound of hearing all those kids laughing and screaming. It was like, something I haven't heard for a year. It was great.
yeah, Nancy, I mean, I don't know if anyone knows, we live on the same street and the kids were so excited to get back to school. And it's so exciting to see the parents at the bus stops and getting the kids off the buses and, you know, just a back to normal that we haven't had for a long time.
it's, going back to the trust fund, Mark, if somebody asks, who should they talk to about the trust fund, the NOFA? refer them to you?
Yes, I would have them speak to me. I've talked to a few individuals about the potential application of trust fund monies to allow for conversion of a second floor office to residential use if the units were affordable. But we've had a couple conversations with folks, but no applications as of yet.
Okay. So that brings us to Quincy Street. What's doing?
Well, we have three, in addition to the one house that we purchased at 350 Quincy, we have three more that are either under contract or about to go under contract that will need to be reviewed by the various boards and approved. We'll also need to approve a funding source. And the proposal that I've talked to the CFO and the first selectwoman about is issuing short-term notes that will be backed by the Housing Trust Fund. The Housing Trust Fund would essentially pay the interest carrying cost on the notes until such time as we have a development completed and the units available for sale, at which point then the sale proceeds would take out the interim financing. And so that cost, that annual cost for a $2 million note should fit within the $300,000 or so that the board has already authorized. So that will require approvals by not just the Board of Selectmen, RTM, Planning and Zoning, which have already heard the proposal as it relates to 350 Quincy, but also the Board of Finance. And so the intent would be to take that application to the boards beginning in April for a June closing.
It would also require approval of the Affordable Housing Committee, would it not?
I think as it relates to, it would be helpful since the committee has already authorized funds for the purchase of 350. It would be helpful to clarify the intent and also commit those dollars to the acquisition of additional properties there in accordance with the plan. So, if we're looking to have an initial meeting with either Operation Hope or the planning consultant sometime in later this month or early next, maybe we could add that item to the agenda.
Do you have more information that you can give us?
I will. I'm waiting for the other two binders to be fully executed. And I'd like, there's a fourth unit that I would like to include in the mix. So we would be looking at 5 properties as a whole and potentially 6.
And these are all adjoining, I'm hoping.
4 are, and 1 is across the street.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I look forward to getting that additional information.
Yes, sir.
Moratorium status report.
There hasn't been really any change from last month. I included in February's report proposed project at 83 Castle Avenue. That was the subject of a code review meeting on the 16th of February. But no formal application has been made. But we're still approximately the same spot. There are a couple projects that we would anticipate breaking ground this spring. I saw some dirt moving on Black Rock Turnpike, and then I believe that the one on 78 Uncle Place would also be looking to start construction this spring.
You've got about 8 of them listed as owner housing. can you, I know what Westway is, but 50 Canfield is that a little townhouse project that had been approved and sat for a while?
Yeah, 50 Campfield, that probably should be corrected because originally was supposed to be for sale units. I believe they're all rental. In fact, I received a annual compliance report from both Bloomfield and Campfield, so they are rental properties. So that will change that slightly. Thank you.
Yeah, and the other, there's 4 or 5 listed. Are these Operation Hope? Well, Parkview Commons?
Yeah, the ones that are
Greenfield,
listed as permanent supportive housing, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all Operation Hope properties, and I'm working with the town attorney and counsel for Operation Hope to consummate tax abatement agreements, which were approved by the RTM and Board of Selectmen this past year. And as part of that tax abatement agreement, I'm expecting there to be a concurrent filing of a restrictive covenant on the property. So I'm working with the town attorney to do that.
Okay. 730.
So I'm going to turn those red points into black ones.
Good. Black is good, right? Red is.
Black is good. Black is good with this. The red ones are kind of questionable. So.
Yeah. 730, 750 Commerce, trademark 3 or something like that.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's where the Rio Bravo restaurant is.
One parcel. Yes.
Yeah.
There's
Property
actually
was
2
owned by
parcels.
Peter Penzer at one time, right?
It still is.
Still is? Yeah. Okay.
He's considering selling it to the folks at Scala Partners and Abbey Road Advisors.
75 units with a little bit of retail, a little bit of office or something like that. Is there any concern there? It kind of fits in with everything else in the neighborhood, it seems to me.
Well, it is. They asked for a pre-application review, which is a new process that the Planning and Zoning Commission approved, and they did that. I'll get to you, Carrie, on the Jewish home. They did that because there are a couple issues. The Planning and Zoning Commission did accept the TOD report, and some of what they're proposing here is consistent with those recommendations, but they were never incorporated in terms of text amendments. So they're proposing, unit density and height that would be consistent with the recommendations of the TOD planning study, and they're also consistent with what you find at trademark 1 and 2. The big issue for the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is not groundbreaking because they've already considered it as it relates to Fairfield Metro Center, but the applicant is requesting that the commission consider using 2 adjoining parcels to satisfy the 70-30 split between residential and commercial, as well as the parking requirements, because the parking in particular cannot be satisfied on site. They have an abundance of parking at trademark 2 and a small shortfall at trademark 3. So they're proposing to combine the parcels under common ownership for the purpose of satisfying that requirement. And that was done with Fairfield Metro Center, the crossings at Fairfield Metro. So it's not out of the question, but it still would require some action by the commission. So that was the question.
Okay, it's a little bit taller, isn't it, too? Is it 6 stories?
It is. It's between 5 and 6 stories.
Yeah.
We had proposed a slight change in how you calculate height and allow for slightly taller buildings over there. Again, I think the benchmark we were using was Bigelow T, which is 70 or 75 feet. And so we wanted to allow for a higher first floor for retail, a 15-foot height. And so if you did, 5, that's how you end up with something that's 60 or 70 feet as a result. So, it's an interesting proposal. They're trying to use grade and create like little stoops for some of the residential units that face Commerce Drive. But it is a mixed-use TOD type development, and we'll see. I didn't think it was inconsistent. Again, it's consistent with what the Planning and Zoning Commission had considered as part of the TOD planning study, but and we'll see.
Okay.
And, Carrie, you had a question on something?
I guess it's over a year ago, but
Thorpe
the Jewish home had got an approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission for, I think it was they came back. It was pretty, an apartment building down where the old lumberyard was, and it was going to be not assisted living, but independent living for seniors downtown.
Yep.
They got the approval, and then we got COVID. So have you heard anything? Are they going ahead with the project or?
Yeah, when I have talked to Andrew Benoff at the Jewish Home,
Right.
Jewish Senior Services, and indicated that they were still planning to proceed with construction this year, this spring. I know there's some precursor work that has to be done with the sewer system,
Right.
and that's what they're currently working on. The water pollution control required some further investigation of a line. There's some suspicion that the line may have slipped or got dislocated somehow. So the proposal initially was to slip line it, to line the interior of the sewer pipe to provide for extended life.
Yeah.
But that may not be possible if sections have become dislodged. So they are doing more investigation of that and have to satisfy that requirement first.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Thorpe Street, right?
Thorpe Street. There was a
Thorpe Orford Lane, right?
Yep, 148 units of independent living, right?
Going back to Commerce Drive, this is not within Fairfield, but the Showcase Cinema property has been demolished and they're building. It's under construction now, more than 300, I believe, because they've got property across the street. We don't have any say in it, but it will affect, I think, all of the apartments within Fairfield down in that direction. I don't know if they'll be cheaper or more expensive. The design looks interesting, so we'll see. Keep our eye on that.
It's good for Metro North, and it's good for my favorite coffee shop, to which I have not been.
4185 Black Rock up at High Ho. What do you think?
The public hearing was continued. It did not end last night, so it will continue for at least one more night. If I were to compare the two, let's just take the ones we were just talking about here. 83 Castle Drive, 4-story, 40,000 square foot building, proposed 44 units on about a half-acre lot. So that works out to 77 units per acre. And you compare that to 4185, which is a 2.3 acre site previously approved for medical office of 25,000 square foot change. They're proposing 94 units on those 2.3 acres. So that's 41 units per acre, which is kind of in the middle of where these set-aside developments are proposed. I know there's been quite a lot of conversation about, the impact to adjoining streets and to the Merritt Parkway Conservancy, and it's a set-aside development. So again, the bar is pretty high, and you have to find that there is evidence in the record to support a finding of some kind of negative impact, adverse impact to public health and safety that would outweigh the need for affordable housing, and that can't be mitigated somehow by some reasonable modification to the application. don't see anything in the record thus far that would that you'd be able to hang your hat on. But I know it's generated a lot of controversy, as some of these projects do. So,
What about the flooding issue?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've heard flooding issues as well. I'm not aware that there was significant flooding issues, but I'm not the town engineer. But you know, I don't know if flooding by in and of itself is going to be enough. So, you know, typically,
I thought it was a stretch to talk about flooding issues. I lived nearby for 20 years. I never saw it was a problem, but I got a photograph from a friend, and it showed cars underwater right at that intersection not that long ago, within the last 2 years.
We've had, I mean, I didn't think I'd ever see, you know, I was there at a storm that affected Greenfield Hill Business District, and there was an unbelievable amount of water coming down some of those streets from brooks overflowing. I never saw anything like that either. So I'm not sure that, you know, I don't know. It's hard to say. We have had one application where there was a flooding issue that directly resulted in the death of an individual. And that was a reason that was used to justify a denial of the application, among other things. And that was upheld. And I think that was the only application, to my knowledge, that was upheld on appeal.
Yep.
So yeah, you never know. But I think it's probably a pretty big hurdle to clear.
Yeah, I would think so too.
It's not you know, I know people are not crazy about some of these really large developments. I think, you know, in areas of town, like around Commerce Drive, you know, it doesn't look out of place because it's consistent with what you have, but in other areas it does stick out a bit more. So I know it's not as bad as like Beacon View, for example, where we had, in the midst of a very densely packed residential neighborhood, somebody proposing something that was completely out of sync. But
yeah. Okay.
And we'll have to see how it goes.
Any other developments that you're? Well, first of all, you mentioned
the only other
Greenfield
one. Yeah, the only other one I would mention is 15 Umpqua, and that was on the docket for hearing sometime soon. This is a proposed mixed-use development downtown. You probably know the building as on the ground floor is Las Vidas Lounge, the coffee shop. And the developer or the owner is proposing to tear down the existing buildings. There's about 6 of them on the property. It runs from Umpqua all the way to Sanford Street, and build a 4-story building that would have ground floor retail, second floor office, and several stories of residential above, mostly 1 bedroom with a few 2 bedrooms mixed in. It's better than where we saw it initially, but it does. And again, they're looking at aspects of the TOD planning study that made some tweaks to what our existing regulations require downtown. Not significant as infill development. So we'll see how that goes. But you know, that may get heard on the 23rd of March, but it may also get pushed because of the public hearing continued on 4185 Black Rock.
What about the development? I'm sorry, the development in Greenfield Hill Commerce area, the commercial area. One of those 2 office buildings was going to be converted to entirely residential.
That was approved.
That was approved. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there is you recall there was the proposal for Park Avenue where the applicant was making a proposal that was transit-oriented development of some sort because it was located next to the Merritt Parkway as a alternative to an 830G application. And the commission basically said, look, we don't think you're modifying the density all that much. We'd much rather deal with you as a set-aside development under 830G. We just don't think this is much of a compromise. So I expect that to be refiled as a 830G application in the near future.
Okay. Going back to Greenfield Hill, the commercial area, have you heard anything about the Jehovah Witnesses site or the little gas station site across the street?
Well, I've talked to the owner of the gas station site. He was talking about converting that, at least as one unit to residential apartment above, with maybe ground floor retail, or maybe 2 units, 2 apartments. So he was still, I don't think he's firmly settled on an option at this point, but that was under consideration. I have not heard anything definitive with respect to the Jehovah's Witness site. I don't know if anyone else, Helene, if you've heard anything or.
Hey, Mark.
Well, I have a question. Any underground problems with that site?
What?
Any underground, underground, there's got to be problems there, right?
They were taken out.
They were? Oh, the underground tanks and stuff?
I believe so, yeah.
Well, I can tell you that the people in the neighborhood have heard that that's going to be some type of a mechanic place or something, or is what the people that are close to there, Cedar Road, there's a whole bunch of scuttlebutt going on there about, not only the site of the old gas station, but the Jehovah's Witness, they're speculating that it's going to be an apartment site.
Sheila has her hand up. Thank you, Sheila.
Sure. Mark, have you circulated the Housing Trust Fund application maybe to the owner of the gas station who might be building above it for apartments?
Oh,
I will talk to him about it. I think he seemed to be all over the map in terms of where he was, what he was considering. So
might help him focus a little.
it'd be wonderful to get affordable housing up in that area.
I suspect he might need a bigger payoff.
You're going to get a lot of pushback from those neighbors because they're already concerned about what's going on at the Jehovah Witness site. So
when I saw the Jehovah's Witness site come on the market, I said this would be a perfect place for a pocket neighborhood with some affordable housing that would be in scale, that wouldn't hopefully get people in Greenfield Hill too concerned, but that really could work, especially for the elderly who would love to live. Everybody I talk to still wants a pocket neighborhood, 1 floor living, 2 bedrooms.
Perry, I spoke to like one of my very good friends today who lives on Cedar Lane, who said, or North Cedar, who said that would be a great idea. They would completely welcome that.
Of course. All right. Now, years ago, meaning last year or 2, or in the before life, before COVID and before I got sick, when I fancied myself as a potential developer, but I'll start with that. That is not happening. I mean, the point is somebody needs to put something together that is somewhat similar to what happened down in Southport, where a group of people got together and said, let's do this. Now, you guys who live in Greenfield Hill, you may know people who would be willing to get started with this, because really everybody would love it when it's well done. When you can walk across the street, go to the deli, put something up, grab a bite to eat. I mean, my God, what could be better? You would be fighting off customers, but I can't do it.
So it's a perfect opportunity. And people were like, that's a great idea, because I know Nancy knows people who live on that street as well, because we have mutual friends who live there. When I said that to them, they were, what a great idea.
I
so
know.
Now they're afraid that something large is going to go there, and
I've got, as Mark knows, as many of you have seen. I love to bring this out because everybody.
We should have bought that. Yeah. We should have bought that, and then found a developer to do that pocket neighborhood.
That's the best way to do something is
Why
for
can't
us meaning the town. Or
Yeah.
the, I'll send
We
it
gotta
to
find something.
Okay.
I'll send it to you. Or Mark has seen this years ago because I
I
was
mean, look,
starting.
there's the florist that's
Point.
there, there's a bakery, there's a liquor store, there's,
It's a perfect neighborhood,
Tesco's.
a perfect use.
Right, so Sheila has her hand up again.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Why can't we? Why can't we pull together and promote it with the town and subsidize, find funds for it? I mean,
We'd have to turn
work
it
with-
over to
work with a
somebody, but I don't see
nonprofit.
any problem with
Well,
that.
But it's
The owner can
idea.
set the
We're talking
conditions.
about putting forth the idea so that somebody comes along and takes over it. We're not
Yeah.
talking, I'm not saying we develop, I'm saying we
No,
as
we're
a
not.
committee, Affordable
No,
Housing Committee, put forth the idea that, and entertain ideas
Yeah.
to have,
It's a good idea, but
You
you
know,
need
nonprofit.
deep pockets or a very willing seller who's willing to sit with you until you get approvals.
Yeah, but that's all doable. It's just not doable by me right now. Um,
right,
I must say that I did show this once to John Fallon at a public meeting, what this looked like, what a pocket neighborhood could look like. He would love, John would love it. Everybody loves it. There's nothing not to love. So we have to make
So
it
why
happen.
don't we, we talked about doing like some type of, community outreach or something about the ADUs. Why don't we do something with that as well, to put that into the mind of maybe developers in the neighborhood to say, look, or in the area that say, look, this is something people would be interested in. And, as opposed to setting up a big apartment building, you could do this type of thing that people in the neighborhood
See,
would
that's
be more
exactly what
acceptable
our
to.
panel is about.
Here's one thing.
Who's panel?
It's not inexpensive to do, as Steve said. It wouldn't be where all of these are affordable housing. If we did 10 units, we'd have one. It would still represent what would be more, quote, naturally occurring affordable housing than
Absolutely.
and it would meet a need of elderly people. And I can attest to this really now. When I look at those stairs, sometimes I say, it's only into my laundry room and garage, but you just get to a point where you don't want to deal with stairs. You don't want to deal with too much space. We're talking something that everybody really wants, even though they don't know it, but they're going to want it when they're older and still stay in their neighborhood. And
Well,
it has to be done well. It has to be done well, or otherwise forget about it. But it can be done well. And there's
Can a developer make money?
he can make money if he knows what to do. He can. Helene, do you know what the price was on that? It was being sold as a 2-acre building site, so it
It's
can't
an
be.
LLC that bought it.
The what?
Somebody's bought it?
Yeah, so it was an LLC that apparently that bought it.
Well, we can look.
Last time I checked, it hadn't been sold.
Well, that's what my,
Let me see what the status is on that.
I also, would you think it would be a good idea to see if we can get like a local architect to do maybe some type of rendering about what a pocket neighborhood would look like? So
When I first
have something.
And actually one of the most important details in planning a pocket neighborhood is the site planning, typically done by a landscape architect. And that's when I first came to Fairfield over 30 years ago. I was working for Tate and Associates, and we got approval for Greenfield Hill. Jim Tate was a good landscape architect. We got approval for Greenfield Hill, where, up the hill, up there. What was it called? I forget. But anyway, in one meeting.
I might know somebody that's a landscape architect for large scale projects that we could.
A landscape architect could certainly do it. It has to look sexy. It has to look good. It's all in the site planning and the what goes on in these things. I'll just put, you have a combination of public space and private space. And actually, last 2 years ago, I guess, Fairfield Senior Advocates, we put on several proposals about what is a pocket neighborhood for the elderly, and I've shown pictures, and depending on the day of the week, I could do it again, especially if it's on Zoom. But
Would that be something that we, as a committee, would consider if we did like a community presentation about ADUs to also say pocket neighborhoods to maybe get people interested in the idea?
Possibly. I mean, it just all depends on,
We need a champion. Someone has to say, like Carrie's doing the ADU, someone's got to say, all right, I'll do the pocket neighborhood stuff.
I mean, we could, you know, I can certainly speak to someone that I know who is friendly with the very, you know, well-established landscape architect. And see if we could possibly get that going. But I mean, is that something that everyone would want to pursue? I mean, I think it's a different option for Fairfield as opposed to maybe, you know, high rise or.
What is the problem that we're solving here? Because it's not a
don't know.
regulatory
I mean,
one.
you know what, Carrie has a great idea, and I just
in
think
fact-
that,
Look,
you
I'm
know.
just saying, I work with a lot of developers. They're in the business of making money. If there's a market for it and they can make money, they would do it.
yeah.
Yep,
You know? So, you know,
exactly
there's
right.
clearly some issue here. It's not a regulatory one because we allow for this type of thing.
So
you know?
let's try to develop, get
So
interested in it. If you know
what
a lot of
what is-
people, Mark, maybe we
Sheila
can get
had-
people interested in it. Maybe it's a
Sheila had her hand up.
it's a different
No?
thing that fits in with the community, you know? I mean, I think Carrie's she's onto something there.
So,
I agree. It's a great idea, but unless you're actually buying the site yourself and developing it, or you're
No.
providing financing for it, what the hell are we talking about?
Yeah,
we're talking about.
We're
offering-
dreaming.
We're talking about offering the public another alternative so that they can focus on that. That's what we're talking about.
But Carrie just said they like it. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's not that there's public non-acceptance of it.
They don't know about it.
So we have to focus on what is the issue? What's preventing it from becoming a reality?
No, well, two things, you
Is
know,
it
the
the fact, you know,
obvious,
people like the idea, so it can't be that.
but they don't know about the idea. Most people don't even think about it. They're so focused on big, you know, buildings and 830Gs because that's all anybody's talking about, including this committee, quite frankly. We just spent a half an hour talking about 830Gs that we can't do anything about, but we could put out ideas on, you know, smaller units, pocket neighborhoods, so that maybe we could attract some people who might be willing to do that in this town.
What we're
And
missing is we don't own or control these sites.
We're not saying we do.
So if you
We're not saying
owned
we
it,
do.
then you could certainly drive this,
Well,
So
but you can't
that-
really drive it on somebody else's.
Wait,
They're
one
gonna have
second,
to, they're
Cindy.
gonna want to maximize their return on their investment, right? They're just like anyone else,
You're thinking like, you know, an economic teacher.
like a
you know.
developer.
Yeah,
Yeah, don't.
Right.
don't.
Wait, Steve,
Yeah.
Steve had an idea. There was some parcel that was, I don't recall exactly where it was. It was somewhere around the Round Hill, not Round Hill.
maybe Hillside.
Yeah, maybe there was a certain parcel that you said it would be perfect for a pocket neighborhood. If we're gonna do, or if we were gonna speak about potentially
Mill Hill.
doing some type of community outreach about ADUs, if we put this into people's minds,
Yeah.
you know, and like maybe potentially bring it up and people were interested in it, maybe developers would also become interested. I mean, I don't know. I'm just
Maybe we
throwing
could-
things out there.
Maybe we
I
can
agree.
find a property. Maybe we can find a property that works, and then
Oh.
talk to the property owner and see if we can convince him or her that this is a great idea.
No, I don't think that's what we're talking about, Mark. I think we're talking about changing the conversation and presenting a different picture of what could be, because everybody is facing this. People can't sell their houses and move anywhere in Fairfield. They can't afford it, but maybe they want to downsize, or their kids want to come back here. They want housing choice, and they don't know it
Right.
yet. And we can be the committee that puts that out there. So
Those
I-
pocket
I have
neighborhoods.
two-
I think we could be
we're
talking
gonna go
about
through
both
that-
at the same time.
we're
I
gonna go
think we
through that
could be
process.
talking about doing a pocket neighborhood, but talking to someone who we potentially would sell us the property. So it could be, we could all be part of the same conversation.
We can't buy the property. We don't, even with the trust fund, we don't have enough money to buy property.
I'm
But
not
we can
interested in
option
that
it.
either.
You need
Maybe.
developers
Oh,
with deep
Carrie, that's a good
pockets
idea.
or
We
a
can't,
seller
we
that
can't
is
even
going to
do
sit
that.
with it.
Can't even do that.
I have
No.
two,
Well, let me, I'll just,
two,
I'm in the
neighborhoods.
process of buying property right now. And it requires 4 approvals, 4 separate approvals.
Okay.
We're not interested.
So
in
you
that, I don't think.
can't buy anything on behalf of the town. We have to go through a bunch of other people.
Okay. Then we need a person who's got deep pockets, who believes in this, who would do it privately and work with us.
Right. I agree.
Who do we know? I don't know anybody.
Don't you think we should educate before we get into that? Don't you think we should educate the town and the residents so that they
No,
buy
as
in?
Mark says, 4 approvals, forget it, it'll be gone, or it is gone
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
It's who you know privately. Somebody to speak to might be John,
Yeah.
or one of the attorneys who's active in town, particularly somebody who lives in Greenfield Hill.
The only guy who comes to mind that I could think of is a guy I don't like, and that's the one who did Westway. Because Westway to me is a little bit like a pocket
Yeah.
neighborhood.
He's got the money.
He's got the money.
Developers.
Yeah.
Got the money.
Benefits.
Yeah, but I don't
But
want to
you
be
know what?
talking to him.
Glenn
Steve,
Tantangelo
He
or
wanted to
Al
do
Camerata.
something. He
Yeah.
wanted to do
Listen,
something
make the
for the
money.
town. I mean, I kind of think he owes us, don't you? I mean, maybe
He
he
doesn't
would do
care.
something.
Come on.
I mean, maybe
think
he
building
does. I mean, he
public
came to
support
us
is
and
more
sounded like he
important.
was, this, that, and the other thing. You never know. Maybe it
Building-
gains him some, brownie points with the
I don't
town.
know.
Who knows?
I think
Who
it'd be
knows?
easier just to
Listen.
build public support for this kind of concept. And I have 2 projects that I can send to you. One is in Guilford, and the
Yeah, I
other
just
one
saw
is
that,
in,
Guilford.
yeah, the other one is in, it's up off Route 9. I can't remember the name of it. But they're beautiful. They're beautiful little and they're called middle housing.
Mhm.
Affordable is relative, but ideally that would be the thing we would want to promote. We're not promoting, upper scale apartments, but yeah, I think the idea.
These are expensive.
The idea we
These
should
aren't-
talk about it.
I don't think you could build one and sell one for much less than 750,000.
100%.
But if
That would
you-
be, that would be
if
cheap.
you- The nice thing is this is a level site or reasonably level on sewers, working with somebody like Connecticut Valley Homes, Modular Homes. They do really good work. You could do it with a lot
So
of
not affordable.
not as
Oh,
Affordable.
see, I mean,
Well,
it's a shame that you
not
couldn't
as-
do it affordable for like seniors. That would be the.
but you would end up with some naturally occurring affordable housing that's at least less than $1 million.
There could be some subsidies. There could be.
But
some
don't forget
tax
also
credits.
That's less
ADUs.
than $1 million.
It's a good homework assignment for next month.
Well, Mark could put on his affordable housing hat and
Yeah.
No,
join
we're
us at the
talking
table.
about Mark.
Mhm.
Well, we are the
Okay.
Affordable Housing Committee.
Well,
Well,
I just remember the
I'm hearing
first
any affordable
meeting,
housing from you, Mark. I'm hearing developer.
the very first meeting I attended, it was the company that put up Ruane Street and now they're putting up Aqua Place.
Yeah.
I remember that guy saying how important it was to his family and they've spent a lifetime of, being devoted to affordable housing. I mean, I guarantee you, if we approached that guy and said, okay, here's what we'd like you to do. We'd like you to build these and make them all affordable. He'd say, well, wait a minute. I got to make money here. I mean, Mark is 100% correct when he says
You gotta make
That's the
money, 'cause
bottom
that's what the
line.
game is.
they'd love to work
Well,
with us and create these, but he's going to
Yeah,
maybe
there's
do
nothing-
2 out of the group that are affordable, and the rest of them are going to be 800 to $1 million.
Okay.
Nothing
Colleen, did
wrong
you
with making
find
a
out who
profit on
bought the
this.
property on,
I don't know who bought it. It did close on March 5th for 725. I asked the agent, but I haven't heard back from her.
I heard it was an LLC, so it could be
It's not
private.
showing up on tax records yet. It's still too
Yeah.
early.
All right, if you find out, could you just let me know?
Absolutely, I'll let
Thank
everybody
you.
know.
Do you want me all to send you a link to find out more about pocket housing, or if I sent it out to everybody many
I
times?
would love it.
under the-
Yes.
Circulate it
yes.
again.
I'll send it out.
Okay,
Or just Google Pocket Neighborhood and it's all there, pictures, books. You will
okay.
see how popular this is, but it just here because of land costs, it hasn't come along yet.
Bingo.
Okay. So is there anything else? Any new business that anybody has?
I think we've laid enough on everybody.
Yes,
Sheila and Mark have new business.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't know if it's new business particularly, but a new thought related to two things we've talked about. You know, part of your assignment, Steve, was to come up with ideas to promote the affordable housing plan. And I would just like to say something we've talked about before, but how important it will be to do a survey first. And we should all be part of that. And so that we can garner, you know, feedback right away and then plan to see, you know, how we move from there and what we include, what's important, because that's the basis of any kind of conversation, I think. And so I would like to see us put that, you know, add an extra meeting or two in the next couple months to just dedicate to affordable housing plan. That's my
I think that's a
thought.
very good idea. And you know, what I also had meant by that, about promoting the plan was how we get people that we don't typically hear from, being Blacks, Hispanics, the real elderly, those who don't get out and don't attend meetings. How can we get them to participate so we can hear their ideas and their needs?
Sure. Well, we can come up with a list. I mean, certainly, you know, we have relations with the affordable housing, the housing authority, and we can circulate a letter. And, you know, there's all sorts of ways to get in touch with. There's the library that they do a whole, you know, the calendar. It will probably take until we can get in person. It will take that's why survey is such a great idea right now. And it can go out in an email. The board of Brenda Kupchak, the first selectman, can put it in her. There's lots of ways of advertising a survey, so it's a good start.
I would suggest that the survey
Senior
should be
center.
done in conjunction with the new consultant. If they're going to be on board in 3 weeks or something like that, that'd be the first thing we talk to them about.
Yeah, we can start it and have him and give a draft to him. So that he
We
can
did a
take it on.
survey the last time through. I don't know, Mark, if you still have that available.
I'm sure we can dig it up, but I think you're right. You know, one of the things you would ask the consultant to do is, you know, there's a science to drafting survey questions to make sure you have meaningful data coming as a result of it, things that you can act upon. So that's part of why we're bringing in a planning consultant to help us with some of that work.
Well, yeah.
I think,
It
you know,
is.
questions or topics, for sure, the committee should think about those, and we should put those forward, and then we'll let the planning consultant figure out a way to draft the question in such a way that we'll get some good data as a result of that.
The one other thing that I had was that to say, they're back to the question of whether you eliminate a public hearing or you have a public hearing and how, you know, public hearings give, or, you know, a voice to neighbors. There are other ways to give voice to neighbors. PPZ is allowed to send out letters to neighbors. They can ask for written comments. And they can, if they get enough, they can hold a public hearing. There's many ways for the neighbors to find out about development in their neighborhood and comment on it. It doesn't just have to be a public hearing. So just wanted to throw that in there. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so sorry, I have to run. I have a call I need to make, okay? Good night,
All right.
everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Sheila.
Good night, Sheila.
Thank you.
Hi, Sheila.
And Carrie, you've got your hand up. Do you have a question, or is that your blinker on the car? You know,
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I'm not, I don't know why it's blinking me. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm here right now.
So I have nothing else. Mark, you had your hand up a minute ago.
Yeah, just two things real quick. We began planning for program year 47 under the Community Development Block Grant Program. We held our first public hearing earlier this week. Applications under that program are due on March 15th. So this is the federal fiscal year beginning October 1 of 2021. So we're in that process again. And then we've also just started accepting applications from municipal agencies and nonprofits under the Neighborhood Assistance Act, which is a state program that provides tax credits to businesses that provide charitable contributions to qualified, activities from nonprofits or municipal agencies. So again,
And
we're
it doesn't have to be,
beginning that process.
they don't have to be in town.
It would be best if they showed some connection to the community in terms of the services they provide to Fairfield.
Yeah.
But technically, I suppose not. It does generate a lot of questions if there isn't any connection, obvious connection to Fairfield. Because pretty much every community in the state now is participating in NEA program. It used to be a small, percentage, but everyone is doing it now.
Okay.
So that's it.
Well, thank you all. The next meeting is April 14th, the day before tax deadline. And we'll see you all. Remember on Sunday to turn forward your clocks.
Spring ahead.
Yay!
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
all.
Yep.
Just sent you
Okay,
out a
good
link.
night. Yep,
Okay.
great.
Thank
Ending
you.
the meeting, and
Thank you.
we're adjourned at 8:44
44.
p.m. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Hi.
And thanks, Gretchen.
Thanks, Gretchen.